And finally, also to be able to push them from the simplest units of language, like the phonemes and the morphemes, the sounds and the letters in the language, to phrases and then to full sentences and paragraphs and stories in that language. It may help if I just briefly actually show you the software now to give you a bit more grounding in what I'm talking about. So let me drag that window over. So our software exists in both web forms and mobile forms, with an Android version available now and an iOS version available later this year. A user who signs in, which I welcome any of you to do, will see a dashboard view as shown here, and will be able to purchase or try out or receive from friends or others courses or course modules shared with them. I'll show you a couple of examples of courses here. Let's do this one. So I have the ability to edit this course if I have created it, or to study the course if I am a student who's received the course. And here I'm basically going to be presented with question after question after question that test my ability to do the sort of transformations that I mentioned. In this case, this is a question that's testing me on my ability to spell based on what I see on the screen. So I'm simply asked to type or drag and drop the different characters here onto the screen to spell out the word correctly. And then I get evaluated on my response. At the election of the content creator, I can see or not be allowed to see my performance as I go through these activities as well. Here's a question where I'm asked to transform from an image to the written form. I can expand the image if I want, and then just select whatever word goes with it best. Over time, as I answer these questions, the software forms a model of what I know and don't know, and will ask questions that become increasingly more and more challenging for me based on the pattern of errors that I've made before, as it both tries to diagnose where within that web that I mentioned earlier I have problems, while also trying to find the optimal solution through the AI and machine learning enabled approach that we have to challenging those problems. Let's take a look at another course, this one. All right, in this course, I'm actually being asked to test my expressive abilities, in this case with handwriting. We also have abilities to test typing and of course speaking as well. It looks like in this case, I'm actually in a version of the handwriting course in which I'm not only typing on this, handwriting on the screen with my finger or stylus, but the software is actually predicting where I'm going to be placing the cursor, and if I'm making any error as I go along, it's actually going to accentuate the error. We found that has been quite helpful for children who have a related problem to dyslexia called dyspraxia, where they have difficulties with the motor production of speech, motor production of language, whether it's speech or in the case of dyspraxia, with handwriting in particular. We found with this approach, where we not only give them exercises where they practice handwriting, but actually have a subtle manipulation of the errors as they write, that we can reduce handwriting errors even over just a few hours of practice spread across a couple of weeks by 35%, compared to just 5% over that same period of time if they don't have that exaggeration of errors. Anyway, those are just a couple of examples of courses. Again, we aim to test all those different transformations that I mentioned. Users, including students or their parents or teachers, they also have access to detailed performance stats about how they've done. In this case, you can see I've selected myself as the user, but I could look at other students as well. I could select different sessions that they've done. I could choose different groups of users against whom to plot their data, which then shows up on the background here of these graphs, plotting their accuracy, their speed, their memory, their completion, and other metrics that we've also developed that help to capture at a very high level the formation of their understanding of the concepts that they're learning, as well as any specific misconceptions that they're still stuck on over time. We can also bore down into detailed results. We can look at specific audio responses that they've made over time, or handwritten responses that they've made as well. And we can plot their data with a leaderboard approach against other learners. Other courses here, other tabs here in the software have to do with content management functions that would be available to, say, teachers or other people involved in content creation. And other pages have to do with user management and group management as well. Again, some of these higher functionality things that might be most relevant to high-level users like teachers or other content creators. All right, let me just return to the presentation. As mentioned, we do use some ideas from natural language processing and artificial intelligence in the construction of our software, primarily for the purpose of both allowing the software to form an internal model of what the user knows and doesn't know, but also to optimize the user's future learning through the selection and sequencing of concepts and questions for those users over time. This is also made possible through a very unique structure of our knowledge base, which is not formed or not based in terms of underlying questions or stories or games, as you may find in some other software, but instead in terms of atomic or basic concepts, things like the individual phonemes, the morphemes, the words, the syllables, and so forth that make up the language the student is trying to learn. In addition to those components, there's also key roles played by our user community, which consists of both learners or content consumers, as well as teachers or content creators. Each of them plays roles in shaping the functioning of the algorithms, but also in refining the knowledge that's stored in our database over time. Briefly, in terms of our value proposition and advantages, what we're offering students is the ability to help them to overcome whatever unique patterns of cognitive weakness or deficit that they may have with a solution that is increasingly individualized over time to those problems that they present with. For teachers, especially those who may not have expertise in dealing with all the different cognitive strengths or weaknesses that different students have, we offer them the ability to rapidly get a sense of where their students are at, and even to automate some of the process of content creation, delivery, and reporting of the metrics that describe the student's performance. And then for administrators, say the owners of, and other admins working at private or public schools, we offer them the ability to offer a single platform that can service both their students and teachers without really requiring much in terms of production costs, since they can adopt the same content that we release and build over time with our student and teacher users to a wide population of users and institutions. At core, though, what really makes us unique is our approach, which is really rooted in both neuroscience, but also artificial intelligence and machine learning. And a lot of it's actually based on research that I did as a PhD student and then postdoc, along with peers of mine who are working on other and related problems in neuroscience and computer science. Briefly, in terms of how the product is actually packaged and sold. So it is a freemium approach. There's a basic platform and some courses that are available to everybody. And in the case of the language learning disorders market, students would be able to exceed what they would be able to access for free through premium courses or content that have been made available to them through institutional sales to their organizations, be it private or public schools. Similarly, teachers wouldn't have to pay for the software at all, but they would have access to some premium features through their institutional accounts, things like the ability to release courses or contents, including rich multimedia to groups of users. And then for the institutions, they would be the ones who would actually be purchasing the software on behalf of those users, and they'd be doing so on a subscription basis. Briefly, in terms of the market, so we would describe our service obtainable market as that consisting of learning disorders among primary and even secondary students in North America. That's about 5 million students and consists of about, and is worth about $3 billion annually in US dollars. Notably, every student in this market who has a recognized or suspected learning disorder costs the system 2 times what their other peers do. Our service addressable market, SAM, is $15 billion, and that consists more broadly of students and teachers in this space who may not have recognized disorders like dyslexia or dyspraxia, but who may nevertheless benefit from a very individualized approach. And then more broadly, in terms of the TAM, we're looking at the entire global e-learning market, which is certainly quite a bit larger. And there's other overlapping markets that are worth noting here as well. There's the adaptive learning market in the US, that's 6.5 billion at the moment. There's tutoring and test preparation as well, and the larger language learning market. We would fit somewhere at the intersection of all these markets. All these markets are also growing fairly rapidly. Typical numbers of growth that we've seen for the ones that I mentioned on the previous slide are between 20 and 25% per annum. And I'll be happy to talk more with questions about any specific questions you have about our business model. In terms of our team, so myself, I'm leading the team. I have both a medical and a research background in neuroscience. I'm supported by a team of software developers, project coordinators, and content creators. And we in turn are supported by a large number of academic collaborators, including those mentioned here, as well as experts with experience in language and language learning disorders. We're also fortunate to be supported by many organizations, including business incubators, funding partners, as well as different academic institutions as mentioned here. And in terms of funding, we've been quite fortunate to access a good deal of public funding to support our relatively R&D intensive work. To date, we've raised upwards of $600,000, the majority of it from different government grants, tax credits, and subsidies. What we are aiming to get now, and this would bring us more into the realm of private fundraising, would be on the order of $800,000 to cover another year and a half of focused market entry into this space with costs as shown here. In addition to that, our team is still relatively dominated by R&D personnel. And so we are looking for senior business development expertise to join our team. And so that is my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions that you have now.
So we have a couple minutes for questions. If you have any, feel free to toss them in the chat, and then I can just direct them your way.
So feel free to fill out the poll. You've got 3 options today, definitely, somewhat, or no. And that feedback will be shared with you as soon as the poll finishes in a few minutes. And feel free to pipe in with any questions. Perhaps you could summarize your intellectual property position again.
Yeah, so we went through a lot of thought about whether or not to pursue either a patent approach or a trade secret approach here. We did go as far with the former approach as submitting provisional patents on some of the technology, but ultimately after discussion with a good number of other entrepreneurs, software developers, scientists and researchers in the space, as well as our legal team, we decided that we would have better protection through a trade secret approach. And that's largely because as a software focused company, the process of submitting a patent to describe any part of our technology does open it up to the world and does make it possible for others to replicate the technology. And so if they want to do so without violating our patent, they can do so by doing things like manipulating some of the many different parameters that go into our AI model of how learners use the software and how they can be optimized over time in terms of their memory retention. Yeah.
Okay. Angela, does that answer your question?
Angela, I see also you mentioned about university ownership. So we're fortunate that we got clearance early on for my own institution that there would be no conflict with the university where I was working about ownership. And similarly, we've been mostly working with researchers at institutions like University of Waterloo, Wilfrid Laurier, and others that have a fairly generous position on IP, so that the academic collaborators that we work with have the freedom to work on projects of interest to them and to sign contracts directly with us that have, for the most part, governed our technology by allowing us to own the results of any collaborations that we have. Yeah.
And Simon, do you see the question from Carla? I think
yes,
that'll have to be our last question just for the interest of time.
Yeah, so we're still working out the exact details of what schools would pay us. We were working closely with a couple of schools just this past year, but all those negotiations have been disrupted, of course, by the pandemic. Our basic approach to the pricing, though, is to have contracts that last between 3 to 5 years for a public institution, or probably 1 to 2 years for a private school or tutoring organization, with pricing that is charged on a per user basis for both teachers and students. For example, $2 per year per student and $10 per teacher per year. Yeah.
And then there's a second half of that question.
Yes, I see that as well. Yeah, so in terms of validation, that's an interesting question. So the easy thing to do simply with any platform like this is to show that students do improve in time or with any of the metrics that we have, how well they remember the information, how fast they can respond, how well they can distinguish one concept from another. And we can demonstrate those all within a session as well as from session to session to session, both to the satisfaction of the students, their teachers, their parents, and administrators. But there are additional higher level validations that we are now moving into, including comparison of our approach against other approaches in this space, as well as neuroimaging or EEG studies that could hopefully help to demonstrate changes in brain activation over time among students whose brains are actually being reshaped by what it is that they're learning. That's a longer term validation that's probably going to take us at least a couple of years.
Thank you very much, Simon. We're going to move forward just in the interest of time. I do encourage people to reach out to Simon if you have any advice or additional questions. His email is simon.overduin, right?
That's right, yep.
simon.overduin@gmail.com, right?
Yes, thank you.
From memory. So Simon's email's there. Feel free to reach out to him if you have any additional questions or comments.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Simon.
Thank you, everybody.
I wish you the very best. Our next presenter, I believe, is, it's Simba. Sorry, the chat's moving around there. Simba, are you there?
I am. Can everybody hear me?
I certainly can, so I presume everybody else can. So Simon, or Simba, I'm just going to give you the floor here. You've presented before at one of our virtual Discovery Lab sessions. So here's your 20 minutes.
Yeah, okay, perfect. I'm actually going to not have my video on just because there's a lot of stuff. I'm kind of like running around today, and I'll kind of share during my presentation why that is. But I am excited to share with you today what we've been working on since my last presentation with Discovery Labs. Okay, perfect. Okay, so thank you everyone, and thank you Michael and Cameron for inviting me again to be able to speak here. My name is Simba, and I'm the founder and CEO of Lenica Research Group. The concept of our company was developed in order to try to improve cognitive assessment as well as improve cognitive training. Specifically, initially it was within athletes, but we've kind of moved to both athletes and the healthcare space. And so the problem that I'm going to be identifying today is going to be talking around stroke. Again, our program is going to go beyond just stroke, dementia, concussions. But for today's session, we decided to just focus on one of the areas that we're going to be focusing on. And so the issue right now is that stroke is one of the leading causes of disability globally, as well as in Canada. And studies are showing that when an individual suffers from a stroke, they're 10 times more risk of developing dementia. And if anyone has had the unfortunate experience of seeing someone or having a family member who is suffering from either stroke, dementia, or both, we all know that it could be something that's very impactful to the quality of life for that individual and to the family as a whole. In 2019, global cognitive impairments cost around dementia hit about $1 trillion. And so I know a lot of people talk about different diseases being a major concern, but dementia seems to be one that keeps increasing year by year as the incident of dementia keeps increasing, but the quality of us being able to address it does not seem to be changing as much. So what we are proposing as an organization is to create a platform that's going to allow users themselves to be empowered with their own cognitive health. With the technology right now, if we think of like wearable devices such as the Fitbit, people becoming more aware of the importance of nutrition and brain health. We've got a variety of validated neuropsychological evaluations that are used by different psychologists and medical history, all those elements at this point are disjointed, and people will kind of focus on one, or might focus on the fitness aspects of it, but might not use neuropsych evaluations to combine the data points from both those areas. And so what we believe is that if we are able to create a platform that integrates all these systems, uses both machine learning and AI to kind of identify some of the trends and correlation between different data points, I will be able to eventually calculate stroke risk. And our platform at this point has just been launched yesterday. And that's kind of why everything has been a little bit more crazy, is that we launched our alpha version yesterday. And what it does at this point is that it's a combination of combining our lifestyle measures from one of our partner companies, Health Gauge, which we'll be utilizing to measure people's physical activity, but more importantly, the device measures blood pressure, which is one of the core risks associated with developing a stroke. The platform also combined virtual reality training, which is the area that we've been focusing on for the last 3 years. We have developed 3 different programs, 2 of them for the sports performance market, in which we've worked with some Olympic players in Canada, as well as some of the sports training centers here in Edmonton, as well as another cognitive rehabilitation tool that we developed in collaboration with the Glenrose Hospital. And so what we've done, as opposed to having all these programs separate, is that we've all combined them onto one platform, which will allow the athletes, for example, to be able to combine all their data points onto a single platform and then determine the performance measures as well as the cognitive health. What we are going to be doing as well is we're going to be combining some validated assessments that have been done, such as the GAD or the PHS, that are used in research to validate people's overall cognitive and mental health. And then it will also allow users to be able to choose whether they want to share that data with the healthcare professional or their coach. What is unique about our platform is that even though we are partnering up with organizations to be able to share this information, what we are hoping to do is actually empower the end user with this information, and then they can choose who they want to have as part of the group of expertise to be able to inform their own cognitive health. With the combining of all this information, what we are hypothesizing at this point, because we don't have enough data points, and that is what we're going to be getting in the next few months, is we want to create an algorithm that is going to evaluate individuals' stroke risk by combining both the physical and cognitive data that we'll be collecting on our platform. Now, the hope is, if we are able to prevent the strokes, that will be the biggest win for us. It's not a matter of reducing recovery time or preventing dementia or improving quality of life for dementia, even though our software will be able to do that. Our primary goal is prevention. If we can show people that their stroke risk is increasing or decreasing based on the lifestyle choices that they are making, we feel that individuals will be able to take the necessary steps to make sure that they don't actually end up suffering from a stroke. And so some of the measures that we will end up looking at is the fitness score, the cognitive score, as well as some of those biometric measures such as the ECG and the PPG, which are associated with the quality of their heart health, which is again another contributor to how the cognitive health is currently at. The global market, according to the World Health Organization, is unfortunately expected to increase. And this is kind of looking at the full market for cognitive impairments. And so the World Health Organization predicts that by 2025, 1 in 3 people will be diagnosed with some form of cognitive health impairments. And so if we are fortunate to be the one that's not diagnosed with the cognitive impairments, chances are we're going to know someone who is going to be diagnosed with it. And so as an organization, as my team, we do feel like this is almost unacceptable, considering how much information we know about people's mental health and cognitive health, how much technology we have there, how much research has been done. And so we feel very strongly that we need to do something about this. And what we're trying to do is develop a platform that is going to allow different experts and different organizations to be able to collaborate and be able to mitigate a lot of these impairments. In Canada alone, over 50 people will be diagnosed with a stroke every single year. And then keeping in mind that, again, each of those that have been diagnosed with a stroke have an increased risk in developing dementia. And the encouraging thing is that CDC reports that about 80% of these strokes are preventable, and that is basically going to be one of our main goals. A big portion of our business model is through partnerships with organizations that have got expertise in specific field. So HealthGauge is one of the examples that I gave earlier, which is a wearable device. However, our platform will also work with other devices such as the Apple Watch and the like. We have also partnered up with the University of Alberta, in which we are doing a study right now to validate one of our virtual reality program. Thanks to Campus Neuroscience Alberta grant for that. So just a mini shout out. And then we are also talking to one of the doctors from the University of Missouri who's looking at evaluating the effects of sleep and cognitive performance. And as I had mentioned, the Glenrose Hospital is we built a stroke cognitive program with them. Our product will be available for both individuals, families, and organizations. And even though right now we are conducting our alpha version with professional and semi-professional athletes, just because the barrier of entry is much easier than the healthcare field, our main target is going to be targeting the healthcare field once we've got that data and that validation points in the future. Our sales and marketing is going to involve regular social media marketing, email marketing, and cognitive health blogs, which we've been launching for the last few months. We're going to be having endorsements from different athletes and sports teams, and part of this is just to also help in the development of the platform. So some of the athletes are already willing to pay for the platform, and so it will allow us to kind of have the funds to conduct more research and development. We have partnered up with a few training centers in Edmonton, a few in Brazil, and one in Italy. And part of that progress or customer retention is just individuals will be able to monitor the information and the data points, but more importantly, they'll be able to compare the data points to the average of the individuals, of the other group members that are on the platform. Currently, right now, if you look at the competition or like what is already out there, is that there is a lot of great tools that do allow individuals to assess and monitor their stroke risk. So Riskometer is just an easy app that you can kind of put to evaluate your stroke risk. And then for the assessments, those are neuropsych evaluations that have already been validated over years of research. And so what is unique about our platform is that we are actually able to integrate both Riskometer as well as the assessments that are there into our existing platform, so that our users can actually get a more informed and full picture of their cognitive health. Our competitor in the virtual reality space is NeuroTracker, which is a company in Montreal, which also uses one of the same research that we have used to create one of our program. And then XI Health is also another company in the States that also utilizes virtual reality to improve our cognitive performance as well as rehabilitation. What is unique about us is that not only do we target all those areas, but we also have metric integration, which is something that is not being done. The team consists of myself, and then we've got Lenica, who's got a master's in neuroscience and been actively working in the stroke section at the University of Alberta. We also have Yang, who's working from the University of Alberta as well, who's working in the Department of Psychiatry doing machine learning in identifying certain psychiatric disorders. We've got Cliff Newfield and Scott both supporting with business strategy, and then we've got one developer that's supporting us. Our advisory team consists of Dr. Boulanger from University of Alberta, as well as Dr. Anthony Syngli, who is the one that we're conducting the research with at this moment. At this point, we actually I do not have an ask that I'm conducting or asking for at this point, just because we just launched our alpha yesterday, and right now we're just scrambling to make sure that the integration is working really well. We're getting the feedback from our end user at this point, and so we want to make sure that we are validating our alpha. We're going to have a few training centers and a few athletes using it at this point, and then once we get more solid understanding of how the alpha is being received, then we'll be able to kind of get a better idea of what we're going to be needing to move forward. And our projections. Our projections, we also did not include them because when COVID hit, we realized that the projections we have kind of been will not be accurate with the changes that have taken place. So yeah, thank you everyone for listening, and I'm more than happy to take any questions.
So any questions for Simba? Feel free to toss them in the chat. And fill out the questionnaire.
Simba, maybe you can talk a bit more about the timeline for what this year looks like for you in terms of business development.
Yeah, of course. So we're going to be doing our alpha. The alpha launch will last about 6 weeks, in which we'll just have a small group of individuals trying out the platform. And then upon completing that, we're going to be moving into our beta launch, which is going to include a few validation runs. And what this basically means is that we're going to be controlling some of the cognitive assessment and training that we're going to be doing with some of the users. And with that beta, that's when we are going to assess and determine if the market will actually pay for the platform. Of course, verbally, some of the training centers have said they will pay, but we are waiting to actually see if they're going to be able to actually be okay with being able to pay and implement the platform into the training centers. So we're looking for a 6-week timeline for the alpha, another 8 weeks for the beta, and then after that, we're going to do a full launch into the training centers that have used our old program, and hopefully they'll be able to transition into our new platform.
I have a quick question for you. What's your, I'll leave it to Carla first. I'll read her question out loud. Can you provide more detail on how your competitors in the healthcare space generate their revenue? Is it clinics or individuals who are their primary market? And will you follow a similar model?
So our competitors, for NeuroTracker, they do have the kind of the healthcare system, like program and system. Usually the healthcare will just pay, like a hospital will pay a one-time fee, so maybe like $60,000 to $100,000 to get the system integrated into their into one of their departments. Another example is the current system, which is currently at the Glenrose right now, and the Glenrose paid about $3 million for that system. Extra Health, I do know that they do have a subscription model where the hospital does pay a monthly fee or an annual fee to be able to access and use the programs. And so we are going to be using the subscription model in terms of our platform. And part of the reason is we want to be able to change and upgrade the hardware components that we'll be using every 2 years, just to keep up with the latest hardware and virtual reality and augmented reality software that's going to be coming out. So we are going to be definitely doing the subscription model. And we've also realized that the subscription model is a little bit better for the integration into the healthcare industry because it won't be considered a capital cost, which requires additional individuals to be part of the agreement process, but it will be operation cost, which is at the discretion of the individual departments. So when we did develop the stroke program with the Glenrose, they will be able to decide whether they want to integrate it, if it's on a subscription model versus if they have to pay a one-time fee, then it has to go to kind of the administration.
If someone was to invest, what would you put the money into?
The investment will likely go partially to more research and development and integrating more of the different apps that are around there to have the data in the platform, and then the expansion of the program. once we have a few people using the program, then we do feel that it will be much easier to expand and have more users, whether they're organizations, training centers, or athletes using it. So it'll be R&D and then just the expansion of our user base.
Okay, I'm going to end the poll, but thank you very much.
Yeah, in the interest of time, we will move forward to our next presenter. Thank you very much, Simba. I actually have a few questions myself for you, something to consider, but I'll send that in a follow-up email.
Okay, perfect. Thank you everyone for your time. I'm going to have to head out, but I'll see you soon.
Take care, Simba.
Okay, bye.
Our next presenter is already here. It is Alireza of ofBrains, who's going to be talking about some miniaturizing clinical trials. I see we have him on video. Feel free to share your screen and get on audio when you have the opportunity.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Can
Hello.
you hear me? Yeah, okay. So thank you very much. Let me share the... Can the screen be seen, the slides?
Not yet.
What about now?
Doesn't seem so.
So, okay, it's failed. So, what about now?
We still see you.
Not the screen, yes?
No, I don't see the screen. Michael, do you?
It says that screen sharing has failed to start. Please try again. So I try again. Share.
Michael, you're on mute, just so you know.
Perhaps you have multiple windows open.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Are you now you see the slide or no? Still?
We see you.
Oh, we see. Okay, I don't know why. So let me.
Yeah, looks better.
Now still you cannot see anything, yeah?
Yeah. Do you have multiple desktops?
Yes, yeah.
You have to choose the correct desktop.
What does it mean, correct desktop?
You probably, there's a way to see which desktops you have open. If you send me your slides, I can open them for you.
Okay, yes, yeah, thank you. I just will send it to you.
And then just tell me and I can click through them.
Okay. I send it to you, Michael?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I just sent it. So I don't know why there's no share screen sharing video clip. No. Not yet. You cannot see the slides.
Yeah, I've just started to open it.
No, I mean, I just tried to share it. I think now it's working, yeah?
No.
No?
No.
So I don't know what's the problem.
Is that showing up, Cameron?
It shows the presenter mode where you can see both slides.
Okay.
Is that working?
No. Go up to the top and hit use slideshow.
Okay, I can see it. So if
do you have two monitors, Michael? There
Sure.
you
Is
go.
it visible?
Now it's visible.
Okay, just tell me when to go to the next slide or back.
so I can see it. Can I start if anybody
Please.
else? Okay, so thank you very much and sorry for the inconveniences. I'm Ali, CEO and founder of ofBrains company. But before I start about the company, talking about the company, I'd like to call your attention to the background of this slide, the skydivers. All of them, whether alone or connected to other divers, they have very little time before they just if you go back before they open the parachute, and if the parachute works, they will be okay. This situation is somehow similar for people with Parkinson's disease, with cancer, with ALS, with Alzheimer, with any other form of diseases that there's no cure and treatment. And sadly, there's no parachute for them. People who are responsible for making the parachute are busy with lengthy clinical studies and trials and grappling with regulatory issues. So if you go to the next slide, if we could run a clinical study, let's say a biomarker discovery project, in just a few minutes, we would be able to save a lot of lives. Parkinson's disease, for example, claims more than 200,000 lives every year, regardless of the impact that it has on the quality of lives of more than 10 million people. If we could run a clinical study in just a few minutes, we would be able to quickly monitor and screen the whole city or a country with the viral prevalence of pandemic issues like COVID-19 in just a few hours. And we could simply and easily evaluate the efficacy of drugs like hydroxychloroquine on the, for example, COVID-19 right now. But if you go to the next slide, please. But the conventional method of clinical studies are lengthy, are very expensive. They take years. They are not easy to conduct. And also they are not applicable to every clinicians and research institutes. So next slide, please. We are offering a solution by integrating cloud computing system with our uniquely designed home kit sensor. So the patient applies a drop of the tear or saliva on the sensor for analysis, and the sensor will transmit the result to the clinician. The whole process of sampling, testing, analyzing, reporting, and recognition of the pattern will take just a few minutes, regardless of the number of patients. And so, next slide, please. The process, this solution is very inexpensive, it's fast and easy. But for the solution to be real, we need the sensor and the working app to be available. Next slide, please. The sensor and the web app now are working. We have developed a tear sensor so far for Parkinson-specific biomarkers and a saliva sensor for COVID-19 specific elements like antibody, virus RNA, and cytokines. The measurement technology is very quick, will take just about 20 minutes. It can be specifically designed for other diseases. The measurement technology has been clinically validated for concussion disease and also has the Health Canada approval for COVID-19. The web app now reasonably recognizes the pattern within the within the recorded vital signs like body temperature, blood pressure, oxygen level, and also the just launched voice app, which analyzes the voice for the people with COVID-19, now has about 100 users, active users. We have just launched it 4 days ago. So next slide, please. There are good features with our product. It's totally non-invasive, uses saliva and tear. The whole process is automatic. There's no skill is needed, no training is required. It's very fast, takes about 20 minutes. For proteins, for metabolite, it will take much less in a matter of seconds as well. And it's very cheap and provides a lot of provides the pharma companies with a large size cohort. Next slide, please. There are a lot of applications for our product. Initially, we focused on Parkinson's disease. Now we have repurposed the technology for COVID-19, and it can be used for other diseases, also for drug design and diagnostic discovery. Next slide. Our product can help business owners for monitoring and screening their employees, and can help them to reopen. And also it can help the healthcare system for testing large number of people quickly in just a few hours. Next slide, please. And we have a multi-sided platform business model, so we can provide service for companies to screen their employees, to clinicians for their research, and to individuals for their personal monitoring and testing. Next slide, please. The market for, there are different markets for our technology, but for COVID-19, the market is huge. The cost for reopening the economy in Canada is about $16 billion, and in US more than 100 billion. Our technology can reduce the cost by a tenth, in fact, the technology can help the businesses to monitor the employees, all the employees, every 5 days by just charging the employees $15 a month. Next slide, please. And for clinical trial, the global market has been estimated to be about $70 billion in 2027. With the same cost, we can enormously increase the number of clinical studies. At the same time, we can reduce the cost for clinical studies, but with the same projections, we will be able to enormously increase the number of clinical studies for biomarker discovery, for drug design, and diagnostic issues. Next slide, please. The competitors are different for different diseases. For COVID-19, the number of competitors who detect RNA or antibody or both of them in saliva and blood. We detect RNA and antibody in the saliva, both of them in the saliva, but also we detect cytokines. Next slide, please. We detect cytokines in the saliva, which makes us unique among other competitors. Next slide, please. We have about 800K grant available right now for our research. And also there's about 3 million grant applications pending. Next slide, please. Our team we are a group of highly expert scientists. I've been university professor since 2004. My co-founders are professors at the University of Calgary here, Amir Hussein and Professor David Martino, and also Behruz Far. They are professors at the University of Calgary. Other collaborators are PhD students at the University of the Calgary. Next slide, please. The company has been incorporated in early 2019. We've so far raised 50K from a venture capital in the US. We have developed an important network and connection with clinicians. with pharma companies like Roche and Bayer. We are in CDL program right now, and we have the objective to file an FDA application for our salivary kit for COVID-19 by September. Next slide, please. We're currently seeking fund for our IP, FDA issues, scale-up design, consultancy, clinical analysis, and development of the web app. And thank you very much. Next slide, I think is the last one. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to answer your questions.
We have a couple of minutes for questions. If you have questions for Alireza, feel free to type them up, or you can even just say question, and then we can open up your mic and your camera so that you can ask it. I'll have a quick question. Ali, if you were to summarize one thing that you need to have to get to your next objective, what is that specific objective, and what piece of either advice or help would you need to get there?
Yeah, the first objective for us is to file 3 IPs. And so the first help I need is help for that IP, the cost for the IP. We know Albert, I know it can help us, but not for all of them. Just there are micro vouchers that we can apply. So the first objective for us is the IP filing, and also the next one would be the FDA application for salivary kit. So the first help we need is this one for IP and FDA.
It may be worthwhile, just as a quick piece of advice, to check out this. I don't know if it'll end up expanding all the way to Calgary, but the Edmonton Regional Innovation Program is now putting together a coach program. I just tossed well, we do have a coach program, and people can submit their companies and what they need help for, and then we match them with a coach, or they can recommend a coach to help to get them to that next milestone. So there has been applications from some Calgary companies already. I know because I'm on the committee dealing with that, but I'm just going to say, I can't definitively say you're going to get it, but it is something you can look for and submit an application.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So the name is Coach Program?
Yeah, I put the link in the chat here. So if you go and click chat, it should be down in there.
I'm just wondering if you could comment a bit more on your IP position, and are you working on that with CDL?
Oh, yes, yeah. In the CDL also, we are talking about the IP.
And what is your position currently in terms of protecting any relevant IP? It's a pretty big space you're in, so it's maybe difficult to lock it down with patents, but what's your strategy there?
Okay, we are going to file 3 IPs. One is for our web app, currently for analyzing the voice. And there are 2 other IPs, one for Parkinson's disease and another for COVID-19 using the saliva. Our position right now, we are just preparing the document, and we are trying to prepare the capital for that. But we have filed a provisional IP, provisional patenting so far for the Parkinson's disease.
And who owns the patent if it's awarded?
It's a provisional one for Parkinson's. Yes, yeah. The owner of the IP will be just the company. We are working with people in the University of Calgary, but the IP will be owned by the company, not by university or any other companies. The IP for COVID-19, for salivary kit, there's another company named Critical Care who CEO of the company is my co-founder in my company. They are developing the sensor, and they will they sub-license that IP to our company.
Perfect.
We do have a comment, sorry, from Marnie regarding the IP related stuff in the chat box there. So feel free to collect that information. And then Jennifer asks, from an HR perspective, have you looked at what options you have to support growth and scaling strategy?
If I could understand the question correctly, for scaling, firstly, we are talking with some companies for scale-up design, and we know we need funding for that issues as well. I've just put in the ask just a small amount of money for consultancy for scale-up, but we know when we are going for scale-up issues, we need more funding, and right now we just are using a consultant to decide what we need for scale-up issues.
Jennifer, does that answer your question sufficiently? I see a head nod there, so that's great. You have a few more minutes for more questions. I will also provide everybody with Alireza's email information. If you have further questions that require a little bit more detail or longer conversations, or you have comments for him as well, feel free to contact him here. That's okay, Ali?
That's okay, thank you.
Yeah, so we'll just give it another minute to see if anybody has any questions. Okay, it seems like that's about everything. Alireza, thank you very much for presenting your business to us. Once again, if anybody has any further questions or comments for him, feel free to reach out. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
See you.
See you, bye-bye.
Our next presenter is Tony.
Hello, can you hear me?
Tony, I can hear you. Here's the title of Tony's, actually it's already there, so it's perfect. We'll give the floor to Tony. You've got 20 minutes for both your pitch and the feedback. So yeah, go ahead, the floor is yours.
All right, no worries. Hello everyone, I'm Tony. I'm a postdoc jointly working with the Department of Psychiatrics and Computer Science at University of Alberta. Today, I'm gonna talk about easy fMRI, which is an advanced machine learning solution for analyzing functional neuroimaging. Understanding human brain is one of the greatest challenges in our century. Governments investing a lot of money for understanding how brain works, how we can deal with mental disease, and so on. We have examples of US government, China, which I spent 5 years there to just study my PhD, and also Canada. So probably the best example why they have interest to just spend this kind of money is the cost of mental illness for each government per year. For instance, just depression alone, it's like $68 billion per year, just the cost of just only the depression. Today, we are going to talk about advanced brain studies on neuroimaging. While structural MRI is most prevalent neuroimaging for see the anatomical of the brain, it has some limitation to understand mental disease. For instance, when you can just see the effect of Alzheimer's disease on MRI, when you got the disease and then you have some issue in the brain, or you can probably use it for tumor or something like that. But today we just talking about some better approach for functional imaging. We talk about the functional MRI, which has really promising results in academic research for understanding mental disease even before those diseases happening. For instance, in Alzheimer's case, we can just trace the Alzheimer 5 years earlier by using the fMRI dataset. But the big problem here is that most of the research are academic research, and we don't have a professional analytic tools that can be used for in hospitals, clinics to just predict these things like we just behave with the structural images. We have challenges for creating a tool for fMRI. For instance, the cost of empirical studies. The fMRI data cannot be traced by just regular visual human visions or like visual simple toolbox. At the same time, we need software, hardware, and large scale data for understanding mental disease. Computational algorithms are some challenges. Here we are talking about noise, high dimensionality, and batch effects. Batch effects, it means that, for instance, if you collect data from hospital A in Edmonton, you cannot use the trained model based on this data in the Calgary hospitals or even the next block hospital, because different fMRI machines generate different kind of data, and we have the environmental noise and so on. However, we have some promising efforts. For instance, we have 2 decades of academic research and increasing the number of publicly available data. These public available data like Open Neuron, HPP, and Human Connectome Project are raw. They are not processed. We need huge computational power to just analyze these data sets and generate wisdom or knowledge from these raw data. Since 2014, we are working on a prototype for the EasyFMRI project. It includes all the pipeline, including the pre-processing, the feature analysis, model analysis, and the visualization for fMRI datasets. Our ultimate goal is just moving this platform to a cloud platform provided for a public usage for hospitals or clinics. We try to provide data storage, end-to-end encrypted, try to just provide the data protection standards by contrast of many like general cloud platforms. The mental and physical illness data needs to be localized in some position. For instance, you cannot store the BC data in Alberta, or you cannot store the Canadian mental information in US servers or something like that. We have these kind of challenges for our platform. At the same time, we provide a larger scale preprocessing algorithm to just move from the unprocessed data to the pre-processed one. And we also, for those mentioned public data, we provide the pre-processed version for researchers or for doctors. They can just apply any kind of analysis approach without being involved with the pre-processing or spending time for or spending money for re-process these data again. And we provide enough tag to be searchable for different applications. And also, after pre-processed data, we provide larger scale representational learning, transfer learnings, multi-view approaches for analyzing data to provide better representation of something from like here from the right to left side to understand and be learnable for further analysis. Then we provide high performance computing for analyzing and great predictors for larger scale methods. Here we are talking about deep learning algorithms, we are talking about GPU programming and so on. And at the end, we provide convenient way to visualize the data. For instance, here we have the connection example of the connectome of children brains when they have anxiety. And whole of these examples you saw from here up to here are generated based on our prototype, which I just introduced before. At the end, our ultimate goal is just providing a cloud platform for hospital, clinics, research institutes, and even insurance companies to provide enough computational power, enough analysis models, and so on for getting a better understanding of mental disease, diagnosing mental disease, and so on. Thank you so much for your time. Any questions so far?
So Michael has put the feedback form live. If you have any questions or comments for Tony, please submit them, or you can just say, hey, and we can unmute your mic and you can just ask questions verbally.
Tony, maybe you could clarify again your IP position and freedom to operate issues.
So, sorry, I'm a little, my background is kind of academic. What the means of IP first? It's like investing something? Or?
Sure. Well, are there patents that would restrict your ability to operate, or are you seeking any patents or trademarks or other protection for what you're discovering in terms of algorithms, for example?
Most of our funding right now comes from the academic funding. We have around 7 million RMB from China, from the university. We just start this project. Here also we got some funding from AMI for developing the algorithms behind the our prototype.
I think he means if you were to develop software, would you be in control of that software, or would the university be in control of that? Is there any issues with?
No, no. First of all, we try to, all of the software is just designed by me during my PhD. So our fundings are just paid for the research behind these algorithms, not just the algorithm itself. So indeed, our prototype right now is open source with MIT license on the internet. And we have some collaboration with different research institutes to just use these algorithms. So we don't have any kind of limitation. But the things we are going to just generate is a cloud platform. So cloud platform doesn't need those kind of agreement to just move the software. We just provide the service and our customers can use this service.
Do you have an advisor in a technology transfer office or a business advisor to help you develop your plan in terms of commercial developments?
Just kind of academic advisors, just for technical things, not just for business.
Okay.
Carla has a question. Do you have a timeline for what work will be done over the next 12 months to move forward with commercializing product that can be marketed?
Yeah, actually, right now we just develop almost all of the necessary algorithms to just move it to the cloud platform. The huge time point for we need to just develop a web interface instead of just localized interface. Just move our current algorithms to just move it to a cloud platform. So within a year, I believe that we can just, within 4 months, we can just create a web interface, then gradually move the algorithms to be a cloud platform. And after that, just kind of testing for be sure that they are working on larger scale. Actually, right now, even we are using high performance computing, deep learning, and all of these technologies can be moved to cloud platform. They're almost similar things. The only difference is the number of CPU cores, number of GPU cores here. Our limitation right now is that we need some investigation for renting the cloud hardware and software.
And
in
so,
terms of algorithms that you have, is there a specific algorithm that you think is fairly unique that would be your first product?
You know, during last 4 years, we just gradually published some papers in top conferences and journals, and each of these top conferences and journals just covers parts of the processing units for the fMRI. So our algorithms, they're almost like our algorithms, just designed for with the goal of like the cloud platform. Yeah, the algorithms are benchmarked in different universities, and we have a lot of like good feedback to, and a lot of good you know, for instance, we use our toolbox to understand consciousness. It's a collaborative with Michigan University or some other universities for understanding different fMRI cognitive tasks. So yeah, we have those like high-tech algorithms for applying larger scale data.
Are there any companies that have shown an interest in licensing any of the algorithms?
Not yet. You know, actually the whole of the field is new. It's like since 2001 up to now, fMRI analysis in this scale is like just proposed by some universities. Most of the most of the efforts right now are like academic efforts to just stabilize all of the algorithms or just learning models. But right now, we try to just create something better to be used by, you know, even the easy word in our like toolbox is like, we believe we try to provide a toolbox that can be used by not professional people in computer science, not technical people, just use with like daily, be used daily by doctors in hospital or something like that. Our toolbox is just the only toolbox in the world can just do this one right now, and that's why we get a lot of good feedbacks from top universities and the people working on this field.
How many users do you have so far?
Right now, we are collaborating around 50 universities, 50 universities, like MIT, like Oxford, like Cambridge, like Michigan, like Chicago University, and so on. And we are involving more than 200 high quality projects. For instance, one of the projects we are working right now, and it's just done by Princeton University, is recovering movie and photo from human brain. People just lay in fMRI machine, and then we show them some movies and photos, and our toolbox can recover photo and movie based on the fMRI signal. Or right now in U of A, we are working to predict the children anxiety, and we just figure out some regions of brain, and these regions of brain are working differently with the healthy control and children anxiety. And we are going to publish this one very soon in Nature.
That's great. Well, congratulations. That sounds impressive.
Thank you so much.
Are there any further questions that we should direct to anyone? Okay, well, with that, I'll quickly thank you, Tony, for your presentation. I'm gonna is it okay if I provide people with your email address if they want to connect to you outside of this event?
It was in the last page of my slide, but I can just post it in the chat box.
Certainly, here, I'll just toss it in there. So that's perfect, thank you.
Thank you so much, have a great day, thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to quickly, because I'm going to be signing off here now because I'm about to do some lab work myself. I will just reiterate some announcements that I made and post them in the chat just because we may have slightly different people now here. I am going to encourage people to reach out to our LinkedIn account because we do post more information and additional programming within the community, stuff that gets sent our way that we don't want to inundate you with emails. And so that would be beneficial for some of our companies pitching here today, as well as some of our advisors may find them of particular interest. So that's our link. LinkedIn account that I'm going to post in a second. The second link that I'll be posting is part of the Edmonton Regional Innovation Network, which is operating the coach program. The coach program works is beneficial for everybody here. If you're a company that requires some additional assistance outside of your normal expertise and would like to get some help, you can submit your company's application to get that. And for our advisors, you could operate as a coach to provide that expertise to the companies to help them reach that next milestone. Now, one of the benefits is this program is offered free of charge to companies within Edmonton, and it will support the advisor financially for up to around 100 hours, or that's basically 2 days a week for 3 months to help you reach that objective. So I'm very happy to be a part of that program. Myself on the committee that facilitates that. So that's the first 2 links that I am now posting here. And then lastly, I did mention earlier, we're looking for companies for the Great Alberta Pitch Marathon. And so that's this final link here. We're hoping to have 100 companies pitch in one day, likely the longest pitch session ever in Alberta's history. So it's going to be Pan Alberta. We have 45 companies registered now. Discovery Lab would like to bring a few more within our network, and we have over 101 attendees probably by now. And so that's anybody who wants to just observe, to learn more about what's going on in the innovation ecosystem. You know, I can also say it'd probably be beneficial for certain service providers and investors to get a good lay of the land. We do plan on categorizing them, so you don't need to attend all 100 pitches. You can just go to whatever sessions you would like. Finally, I'd like to thank all of our presenters that have presented so far and upcoming presenters as I'm tuning out here, as well as our advisors. With that, I'm going to give the floor to Michael as the chair for this session, and as well as John, who is, I can see here already, and he's going to be presenting some of his wearable precision healthcare. So thank you very much, everybody, and take care.
Hi, John. Feel free to share your slides.
Okay. Let me start with a quick thank you to Michael and Cameron for the opportunity to share the Protxx story with you this morning. I'm going to mute my video so that it doesn't slow down the animations in the slides. And then with a little bit of luck, a deck will appear on your screens. Someone please confirm.
Looks good. Perfect.
Okay. A little bit of background on the company. Protxx was founded 3.5 years ago. We're headquartered in Silicon Valley in Menlo Park, with clinical offices also in Sacramento, and our Canadian headquarters in Calgary. We launched our first revenue generating product in 2019. We now have customers in the US and Canada and the UK and Japan. And we're supported by a well-established network of development and manufacturing partners, a number of whom are actually in Alberta. So to put today's talk in context, we announced just last week an exciting new collaboration with the Neuromuscular Control and Biomechanics Lab at the University of Alberta in Edmonton, focus on addressing the impact of COVID-19 lockdowns by deploying wearable devices to expand virtual healthcare and remote patient monitoring. This particular project is focused on multiple sclerosis, which, as many of you know, is an autoimmune, inflammatory, and neurodegenerative disease that affects the central nervous system, and it causes progressive disability in many different systems in the body: motor, visual, sensory, autonomic nervous system, cognitive functions. The prevalence of MS in Canada is amongst the highest reported in the world. And it's also the leading cause of neurological disability amongst people ages 20 to 40 years old. As a business, Protxx is focused on addressing challenges that are posed by multiple sclerosis, and other complex neurodegenerative medical conditions, where the challenge is that patients typically suffer from impairments to multiple and interacting physiological systems. That includes the central nervous system, the brain and the spinal cord, its neurovascular blood supply, its ability to process inputs from various sensory systems, and its ability to send motor control commands back out to your musculoskeletal system, all of which are required for even the simplest tasks that we do routinely: standing up, maintaining balance and postural stability, and walking. But identifying and quantifying impairments to all of these different physiological systems remain very hard problems, but they're critical for accurate diagnosis and effective treatments. Current solutions require that a patient be scheduled for multiple very complex tests carried out by multiple specialists using expensive clinical equipment. And neurodegenerative medical conditions have many different causes: age-related disorders such as stroke, injuries such as concussions, diseases such as Parkinson's disease and MS. And these current solutions lead to very large healthcare expenditures and still often deliver diagnoses that are inconclusive or only partial. So our research has led to the development of the Protxx Physiological Vibration Acceleration, or vibrata sensor. It's a non-invasive device. It's worn behind the ear by users of any age. It can be used in a wide range of test environments. And the tiny mass of this device and the fact that it's mounted in close proximity to the balance organs, the vestibular organs of your inner ear, allow the vibrata sensor to detect features and patterns in normal and pathological motions of the human body at a level of detail that have not previously been observed, which allows for the first time to use a non-invasive device to independently identify and quantify impairments to multiple physiological systems in the body, to guide adjustments to treatment and rehab, and then quantify and track corresponding patient responses, which all accelerates time to treatment and recovery, expands remote patient care, and ultimately improve patient outcomes and reduces healthcare lifecycle costs. The vibrata sensor essentially combines the ease of use of a very simple vital sign instrument, but with the diagnostic power of much more complex and expensive clinical systems, which disrupts the diagnosis and treatment of these complex medical conditions by offering much easier to use and much lower cost precision patient assessments. Our value proposition spans the entire healthcare value chain, so payers benefit from lower costs for precision healthcare tools and testing. Providers benefit from direct access to precision healthcare tools and testing that they can use themselves at the point of care and at the time of care, again, instead of having to send patients out for multiple specialized clinical tests. And patients ultimately benefit from more frequent precision healthcare testing, whether that's in clinic or remote, which ultimately leads to better healthcare outcomes. The science behind the sensor, so we've essentially adapted a very powerful tool from systems engineering, this detection and analysis of mechanical vibration signatures, something that already enables the design as well as remote monitoring and fault detection of very complex dynamic systems, everything from molecular medicines to massive machines, robots that mimic human motion. There's a link to what we're doing. Our own innovations in wearable devices and machine learning extend these capabilities to diagnosing and treating the most complex dynamic system that we know, which is our own human physiology. So as illustrated here, the actual vibrata test involves simply placing the sensor behind the user's ear with a small disposable adhesive, and then having them stand still for 20 seconds with their eyes open, and again for 20 seconds with their eyes closed. You can think of the Protxx sensor as a very sensitive seismometer for the human body. As you try to stand still, it detects all of the involuntary vibrational motion, both normal and pathological, that's inherent in human postural stabilization, and reflects the interactions between multiple physiological systems, the things that we listed earlier, the central nervous system, its ability to process various sensory system inputs, and then send motor control commands back out to the musculoskeletal system to maintain balance and postural stability. The slide highlights key details of our current business-to-business commercial offering, the Protxx Clinic platform as a service solution. It integrates the Vibrata sensor, mobile app for configuring and running tests, and cloud-based data analytics and reporting services. The $4,800 annual license fee that we charge for the standard product includes 2 sensors, a charging case, the mobile app, a set of standard patient performance reports, and then all the training and technical support they require. We have an additional data subscription that gives customers access to customized reports as well as the raw sensor data to support their own analyses. And our direct-to-chart EHR synchronization service, which removes the last source of friction to healthcare provider and payer adoption. This slide showcases some of the key current clinical applications of the Protxx solution, which include assessing impairments to multiple physiological systems resulting from a stroke or from a concussion injury, and in both cases, the patient's subsequent recovery trajectory, the progression and severity of impairments resulting from Parkinson's disease or dystonia, and the reduction in impairment severity following a successful neurosurgery. In each of these cases, what the Vibrata sensor is doing is providing a very clinically intuitive assessment of both individual impairments as well as their interactions. This slide illustrates the diagnostic power of the Protxx Clinic solution to provide independent measures for neurological, sensory, and musculoskeletal impairments. For the biostatisticians on the call, the areas under the curve, sensitivity, specificity, all above 90% for the respective diagnoses. The data shown here is for 218 patients, about half male, half female, ranging in age from 10 to 72 years that were tested over a 12-month period at 3 different clinical neurology sites. This is about to be published in our second major peer-reviewed study. Our first peer-reviewed study came out in May of 2019, following which we launched the first commercial release of the Protxx platform to paying customers. And today we have over 20 customers and pilot deployment partners in the US, Canada, UK, and Japan, all utilizing the Protxx solution in hospitals, rehab clinics, and sports medicine to improve patient management and outcomes for a range of neurodegenerative medical conditions resulting, again, from age-related disorders, injuries, and disease. The purchasing decision in our case, in most cases, is made by the clinic or lab director. If we encounter significant hurdles to immediate paid sale, we're happy to provide a 90-day free trial. 90% of those have converted to annual subscriptions. Our target clinical deals range from $50,000 to $1 million in recurring annual revenues, which corresponds to between 10 and 200 units of the Protxx Clinic box, again, with the annual platform license fee of $4,800. Our customers, in turn, convert that into a 5 to 10x return on investment by billing existing CPT codes for balance, neurological, and physical performance assessments. If we look at target public and private healthcare provider customers in the 3 major categories to whom we're already selling the Protxx Clinic solution, this represents a $1 billion revenue opportunity for Protxx in the US and Canada, and over $7 billion worldwide. Our go-to-market focus is on securing the critical validation of clinical and rehab medicine providers, which corresponds to hundreds of thousands of units. But we see this initial validation driving the product because of its very broad healthcare applicability into the hands of primary care physicians as well, used as essentially a new digital healthcare vital sign. That corresponds to millions of units. We're also leveraging our R&D pipeline to pursue additional revenue streams in these markets by expanding our data service offering and adding new sensing and therapeutic capabilities. But ultimately, the enormous personal health and performance monitoring impact of the Vibrata sensor, coupled with its ease of use and very low cost, we believe position as a genuine candidate for mass consumer uptake, similar to a digital weight scale, digital thermometer, and consumer wearables such as the Fitbit, Apple Watch, Whoop, sports performance monitoring, which corresponds to tens or hundreds of millions of units. Competing solutions fall into two buckets. The first bucket contains the bulky and expensive lab equipment solutions I mentioned earlier, while the second bucket contains a variety of wearable devices and mobile apps that measure the user's activity or mobility or balance, but none of these solutions are able to independently detect and classify multiple impairments with the ease of use and the diagnostic performance of the Protxx platform. We built some pretty significant barriers to entry, including a portfolio of 18 patent applications, large proprietary data sets that validate the sensor metrics, and deployments with clinical and rehab providers serving our target user populations. Key milestones over the next 2 years include ramping up sales and marketing of the current Protxx Clinic platform as a service product, continuing our clinical data collection to support refinement of our analytical and machine learning models, initiating regulatory approvals for diagnostic applications that combine the sensor and machine learning models for specific medical conditions, and completing R&D for additional sensing and therapeutic capabilities. Some of the exciting product development collaborations we have in the pipeline here in Alberta, including developing a catalog of machine learning models with Alta ML that can utilize the fibrata features and patterns as digital biomarkers to classify specific physiological impairments, but training these machine learning models with much smaller clinical data sets than have traditionally been required. We're working with the University of Calgary Performance Lab to integrate both diagnostic and therapeutic capabilities into the Protxx wearable device by combining the precision motion analysis of head tremors in Parkinson's and dystonia patients with the generation of an offsetting head motion via electrical vestibular stimulation, which would allow the new integrated device to reduce and cancel out pathological head tremors. And finally, as I mentioned at the beginning of the talk today, we're collaborating with the Neuromuscular Control and Biomechanics Lab at the University of Alberta in Edmonton to expand virtual healthcare and remote patient monitoring with the Protxx Fibrata sensor. Initially targeting multiple sclerosis, but with additional targets that include stroke and concussion, and patients with neuropathies caused by diabetic nerve damage, peripheral arterial disease, and spinal disorders. For any interested investors on the call, we're currently closing out the remaining $400,000 of a $1.5 million seed financing round. 1.1 million of that has already been put in the bank from healthcare and IoT angel investors, as well as two strategic partners. Geographically, $1 million of that we've raised in the US and 100,000 of it we've raised in Canada. We'd love to have more Canadian investors on board, obviously. We've also received $200,000 in non-dilutive research grants in Canada. And I hope you appreciate that we have made exceptionally efficient use of cash to date for the development and launch of an innovative revenue generating product. And we expect that opportunities for an M&A or IPO exit in wearables and digital healthcare will only continue to grow in number and valuations for the foreseeable future. Quick introduction to the Protxx leadership team, a very accomplished group of IoT device and data platform engineers, clinical medicine practitioners and researchers, and digital healthcare business professionals with significant experience launching and growing and exiting a variety of innovative enterprises. And finally, we're honored that our innovations have been recognized with awards from many different medical, engineering, sports, and government organizations. And with that, I'll thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very impressive. It's great to have you back again, John, to tell your story again. I'll launch the poll. There are no questions yet, so feel free to ask questions either by unmuting or writing them in the chat space. And maybe, John, in the meantime, if you want to reiterate the unique scalable value that you have, or your IP position, or your business proposition, or your team, feel free to highlight anything you'd like to address that will help with the feedback that you're receiving.
As I said at the outset, we have, a little bit of a silver lining in the dark COVID-19 cloud. We have seen enormous tailwinds due to renewed interest in remote healthcare due to lockdowns, both in terms of patients getting out and doctors allowing them in. That's been a very exciting evolution, as well as the very wide range of neurodegenerative conditions and corresponding patient populations, where we now have activities up and running. And finally, the very broad range of support that we've received right in the province of Alberta.
That's great. Carla has a question.
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
I can.
Oh, okay, great. I was wondering if you'd looked at some niche applications in rare disorders. So I've done a lot of work, for example, in rare neuromuscular diseases that have a lengthy diagnostic odyssey. There's a significant body of non-dilutive philanthropic funding to improve diagnosis and also monitoring of the diseases. Are you at all interested in looking at the rare space?
Oh, we have, and without saying too much more, you're aware there is a disease registry for rare neuromuscular disorders based in Calgary, with whom we've already started discussions. Again, the idea being that because of the device is so easy to use and low cost, it can be utilized. It can be sent out to potential patients to screen prior to clinical trials, as well as to monitor progress during these trials, as well as to follow up post-trial to maintain patient observation. So yes, that's a very interesting area for us, and I'd love to discuss that in more detail with you.
Sure, that'd be great.
That's great. John, feel free to just address any other points that you'd like, for example, in terms of what you do with investments or your business journey for the next year, what you could use the most. I'm just calling the next presenter, so I'm going to unmute.
Michael, it's Jeffrey Beanland here. Could I ask?
Go ahead.
That was, as Michael said, a very impressive performance that you gave there, or impressive speech. Do you have any, or is there any potential for use on epileptic seizure prediction? And secondly, are you asking for enough money in your investment?
So the answer to the first question, we do work with a primary care physician here in California who does a tremendous amount of work with pediatric epileptic patients. Some interesting initial results, so potentially yes, it's not a big area of focus. But again, the initial results are encouraging. In terms of the funding, so I mentioned that we're closing out the tail end of a $1.5 million seed round. That's being followed by a $10 to $12 million Series A round. And I hope that will be enough to get us to Series B.
Okay, very good, thank you.
It's impressive how you're growing internationally already. Any other plans to grow into other regions in the next year?
We have our hands full for the foreseeable future. We are seeing tremendous interest in China, for example, on the tails of what we're doing in Japan, as well as in Korea, as well as in Singapore. So both very large, as well as very large markets like China, very sophisticated healthcare markets like Korea and Singapore. But Alberta is keeping us busy.
Sure, and it's impressive how you've really connected here already. Is there any last request that you'd like to put out in terms of what would help you grow either vertically or across the world?
No, just a big thank you to Patty Wixon and the evidence innovation team at Alberta Health Service that originally took us on a round of all of the strategic clinical networks, as well as a number of the researchers with whom we've now secured collaborations. That initial kickoff introduction was very productive.
Great. And how did you make that connection initially? Was that by just contacting them directly, or what was?
That was good old fashioned going through your LinkedIn and seeing who you should reach out to. Okay,
well, great. Thanks for your initiative on that, and thanks for pitching again today. I think we're going to move on to the next speaker unless there's any last questions.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. So next we have Abdullah, who's going to speak about empowering consumers by aligning their values with their purchase. Just want to make sure.
Yeah. Hi there, guys. This is Abdullah from Team Arbor. I have Danny here with me to present to you guys too. So yeah, really excited to be here, and thanks for having us.
I'm just going to go ahead and share
We
my
can see your slides. Looks good.
Perfect. Everyone can see. Yeah, so thank you again for the opportunity to present to you all today. We'd love to get some comments, questions, and any critical feedback from you after our brief presentation here. So climate change, resource constraints, wealth disparity, and discrimination, these are all endemic to our world, impacting each of us on a global scale. Now, we can make personal strides for change, but how do we enact this change broadly through our lives? It's not always evident whether our purchases, and therefore the businesses we support, share these same values. So how do we create impact with our values, encouraging businesses to be the best they can be? How do we support those who give back? By speaking with our wallets. Introducing Arbor. Now, after a brief initial survey, Arbor analyzes and learns which global issues are most important to you, putting your money where your values lie. Our platform securely monitors each transaction you make across different companies, stores, and services. Each company is given a rating from 0 to 100. This rating indicates how ethical and responsible they are on a global scale. This rating is what we call the Arbor Index. Now, factors such as employee diversity, environmental footprint, labor practices, and more all comprise this Arbor Index, which focuses on aligning your values with your purchases. In your profile, you can add debit and credit cards from over 2,000 financial institutions, or you can sign up to receive an Arbor card. Abdullah will touch on this later. Now, spend money in support of your values. Encourage business change by speaking with your wallet. Since its inception, Arbor has gone on to win provincial and national competitions in the fintech sector. I'll pass it off to Abdullah to touch on how we plan on bringing Arbor to the world.
Thank you, Danny. As a researcher at the University of Calgary, my work is to carefully validate the feasibility with authentic modeling based on cross-referenced, reputable, and authentic data. We built customer personas of the population sector that are statistically most likely to be the initiators of the Arbor revolution. Through 20 different data set points, we were able to divide our total market in 3 main categories: our early adopters, early majority, and then late majority. For our revenue streams, Arbor is actually free to download for everyone. We are currently in discussion to launch our Arbor top-up cards with our partners. This will follow up with an Arbor credit card, an Arbor browser extension to extend Arbor services to virtual businesses, and a B2B Arbor subscription. Our mission at Arbor is simple. We want to make this world a better place for all of us, and everyone is invited to do their part. By using Arbor card services, our users can earn incentive pricing in terms of discounts and cashbacks to support local, sustainable, and environmentally friendly alternatives. The corporations can sign up to find out how their practices are being registered on Arbor Index and what they can do to be a more responsible company. Arbor is currently asking for $3 million for its seed round. We plan on reaching break-even with our top-up cards before expanding and integrating other revenue streams with our partners. Arbor's direct competition consists of 2 entities, Deconomy and Aspiration. Deconomy and Aspiration both focus mainly on the carbon footprint of companies, whereas we focus on how socially responsible the company is through a multitude of factors. In the last 5 years, Aspiration alone has raised over $200 million for their credit card. Our exit strategy, as for any startup, is to be acquired in the fintech environment by either Visa, MasterCard, or PayPal. All 3 are actively looking to acquire consumer-facing fintech companies all the time.
Now, Arbor would not be possible without our great team. With backgrounds in sustainable engineering, computer science, user interface and experience, and finance, our founders are capable of producing an app that can and will change the way consumers shop. As I said, Arbor has been a part of competitions in the past. We won the Wow Factor Award at the ATB Open Finance Hackathon and won first place at the Canada-wide Microsoft Discover AI Challenge. So why now? Right now, it's impossible to ignore the movements of change stirring all across the world. No change is too small, and we believe that together, we can turn over a new leaf. Your values, your money, Arbor. Arbor is currently raising its seed round. If you'd like to learn more, just visit the link at the bottom and you can sign up for our beta. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. That was great and very polished. Really appreciate it. I've put up a poll, so anyone's welcome to give feedback there. Maybe you could, while we're waiting for questions, and feel free to put the questions in the chat space for Abdullah and his team. Maybe, Abdullah, you could address the unique scalable value you have and maybe the competition.
Yeah, it's actually a really interesting space. We started off to create something that we actually believe that would make a difference and something that people from everyday life would use. That's why we factor in a lot of social causes, a lot of environmental causes, and that are defined by the users. So we don't define them. The users actually define what kind of values they prefer to support through their wallet. And there's all kinds of stuff happening right now in the world, and we just wanted to do our part to provide a possible solution to these problems. And we started working on this project back in January, and in the last 6 months we've went on conceptualizing like the idea, and then went on to win the Wow Factor Award at the ATB Hackathon. And we incorporated some AI tools within our app, and participated in the Canada-wide Microsoft AI Challenge. And we won the competition amongst 300 other companies. And we were officially invited to be a partner with Microsoft and be work with them in their Microsoft Startup Program, getting a lot of traction, getting $250,000 credits in Azure for developing our tech. And right now, they're also helping us a lot in talking to investors and raising our seed capital. But we're trying to launch this. We already have, like, as you could see, the app is like the MVP is completely done. And we're planning on launching it by the end of the summer.
That's very impressive. Carla has a question. Go ahead, Carla.
I was just wondering if you're able to share what equity you're offering for that $3 million seed raise.
Yeah, that's a great question, Carla. As of yet, we are looking for someone to be in a safe agreement with us for our seed round. But like I said, we have had considerable interest from investors, and we're letting the market decide what kind of value cap should be best for us. But to be reasonable, we're looking to dilute between 10 to 20%, depending on the clauses in our agreement. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Carla. Great question. Do you want to comment any more about the relationships, the partnering approach? Is the relationship with Microsoft an ongoing one? Are you looking for other partners to help to grow into other spaces?
Yeah, it's a great question again. So we actually started working on this because of the open banking regulations that are expected to come in place in about a year and a half. And so open banking essentially means that banks usually have had historically a monopoly on how they operate on personal user data. So they don't share APIs directly with other product or other services to provide a value addition to the user. Right now it's implemented in the UK and Australia, but it's probably going to be launched in Canada in about a year's time. Obviously, the pandemic has set us a little bit back on that timeline. That's how we started on this idea, was to create an open platform of data sharing. And once we dug more into it, we found out that socially responsible investing is actually a huge thing for investors, especially hedge funds, because they determine these metrics. So there's about 70,000 data set points that go into factoring these scores. They determine these matrices to define how controversial an investment could be. So if like the numbers look good and everything look good, but they still want to know how safe it would be from a controversy, that's essentially what they were using this data to predict. But we decided to make it user facing and let users decide what kind of businesses they want to support. So that was kind of like, the background idea behind it. And so we're looking for partners. Actually, right now we're talking to our data provider to establish a B2B sales funnel, so companies can get insights on how these data are being registered. And we're looking for more banking partners as well. ATB has offered to provide a top-up debit card customized under our name, but we're looking for other alternatives to get into the US market as well.
Great. Any other questions from our advisors or other participants today? I don't know if you want to share anything about what your plans are in terms of growing the team. You've already got a great team. Where would the money go if you were able to get on the order of 3 million?
Yeah, so right now, we actually have a lot of experiences with software development. We have figured out a way to work and bootstrap everything when it comes to the software side of things, but obviously going into the financial sector, it's highly sensitive data, and our growth is dependent on keeping our users' data private and not like even sharing it with other companies for that matter. So you can see like the slide that I'm showing right now. We plan on getting 9 more people on board during our first seed round, and then generating enough revenue to expand the team. This would include people like a data scientist, so system architecture engineer, data security an engineer. So yeah, so it will be mostly about keeping the infrastructure secure and safe, and then also finding someone from conventional banking industry to figure out, you know, with all the compliances and all the laws, right? We've applied for some certifications, but usually this market has been dominated by old school partners. So we want to make sure that we are also complying with all the regulations that are currently in place and that are going to be in place in the future.
That's great. Is there any kind of advisor that you would like to bring on board to help you guide you through the next steps?
Yeah, we are actually looking for our board of advisors right now. We're building it out right now. Anyone within the fintech industry, either an investor or someone who has experiences with the credit card industry. You know, there's a lot of credit card businesses popping up, but the way we're trying to tackle things, it's obviously very unique, and it's an unprecedented way. But we're looking for someone who could bring conventional knowledge to our, you know, our new and unique idea.
As well as someone who really aligns with these values, because we feel that that is important in a advisory board and team.
Sure. Well, that's great. Last chance for questions for the team here. It's a very polished presentation. I wish you all the best with your next steps. And I guess, are you based in Calgary? Is that correct?
Yeah, we are.
Okay. Well, there's a great ecosystem down there, so hopefully you can find the connections you need. There's a lot of advisors on our panel as well from Calgary, so let us know if you want any specific connections, and we wish you well. Any last comments before we close?
Just thank you for the opportunity for having us here. We really appreciate this. But like you said, the Calgary ecosystem has been extremely supportive to us. We're trying to do something by staying here in Alberta, staying domesticated in Calgary, and trying to change the vision and ethics of people the way that we see out here. And you know, anyone who thinks that they might have an advice for us or a suggestion for us to look in some aspect of the model, or like, you know, to talk to someone, I would really appreciate if anyone could reach out to me on LinkedIn or through our company landing page. Anything that you feel like, you know, we can do to represent Calgary, Alberta better when we take on to a bigger stage, we'd be really grateful.
Okay, well, great. Thank you so much. I'm just going to end the poll here and invite our next presenter, Leon Budrass, to step up and share your screen. I'll just leave the feedback up there for a minute, and happy to share that as well afterwards. Oh, great. So the next presentation is on EcoVitro by Leon Budrass. We can't hear you yet, so you might need to unmute.
Sorry, yeah, I thought I muted already. Well, thank you first of all for this opportunity to present this kind of early stage, well, I would almost say business idea rather than actual business that I've started developing a couple months ago. And to start off, I just kind of want you to think about a few questions that I will just tell you right now. So have you ever had to take a product out of 10 independent plastic wrappers and felt guilty about kind of throwing them away afterwards without any real use to them? I certainly have. Or have you ever had to throw out plastic caps and wondered where they all go? I have basically done the same as well. So now imagine being a life scientist having to do this every day while they're trying to research the planet that they kind of pollute. Every year, over 150 million tons of plastics get thrown out. That is around 5.5 million tons of plastics coming from labs all over the world. Most of this plastic ends up in landfills or gets incinerated. Only a fraction actually ends up in recycling facilities. Especially for labware, we currently don't have any alternatives, and most plastics are getting incinerated when they are contaminated with biohazardous materials. So every week, we have around 4 to 10 kilos of plastics per lab in around 100 life science labs in Canada. So that's hundreds of tons of plastics in Canada produced by labs and life science labs. All this plastic is made from polypropylene, polyethylene, polystyrene, and very few biodegradable plastics. This leads to a fallacy for eco-conscious labs, and there are quite a lot of them. When we asked scientists whether they want to use biodegradable plastics in their lab, 78% responded positively, while 5% only responded with no. 17% of these people would only use it on less sensitive applications, which is quite an overwhelmingly positive answer. We want to give these scientists solutions to these problems. We want to produce labware that is CO2 neutral based on biodegradable plastics, PLA, PHA, and PEF, and make all our products sustainable, and collaborate with universities and industry labs to promote composting of these biodegradable plastics. All our labware would be made from biodegradable plastics, but still be as reliable as polypropylene and polyethylene products. This would lead us to a more sustainable business and give us, our customers, a peace of mind. The current market, which does not produce the main products we want to produce from biodegradable plastics, is massive. It is currently estimated at around $6 billion in worth, with a growth of over 3.7% every year. 4 major players are currently dominating the entire market of North America and Europe. And all of these companies are waiting too long to move to more sustainable products. As we're still in a very early stage, we're still taking baby steps, and our first goal is to do more customer discovery. We've currently surveyed over kind of 25 labs, but we want to interview at least 70 laboratories and then move on to prototyping and to determine the right plastics for each product we want to produce. From here on out, we will then determine price points and send prototypes to our customers to test, but also run our own tests for applications that we assume customers would use the most. EcoVitro, preserve the earth while studying it. Thank you very much.
That was impressive, short and sweet, and got to the point. I'm going to launch a poll here. If anybody wants to give feedback, please do fill out the questionnaire. And Leon, feel free, I know it's an early stage for you and your team, but feel free to clarify your responses to the points about unique scalable value, for example, within your planned product line.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the main unique value of our products is that we want to make them sustainable. We want to produce very basic products, such as pipette tips, tubes, dishes out of these biodegradable plastics that are currently at a higher price than petroleum-based plastics, but being sold at a very high price compared to what the plastic is actually worth. So our main value of our products is that scientists would have the opportunity to buy these products that they always buy anyways, just made out of biodegradable plastics that would not pollute the planet with CO2 emissions and toxic waste as other plastics would.
Great. Are there any other advantages in terms of performance, for example, lack of binding to proteins or other things that you don't want the plastic to bind to?
Absolutely. So that is something that I have already kind of considered. We have not, as I said, we have not developed any prototypes yet, so we haven't been able to develop exact tests, but looking at the literature that is out there, there are polymers made from, for example, polylactic acid that have been used in, for example, cell culture, and there was very little kind of plastic that was then later on in the cell culture medium, for example. On a smaller scale, I haven't really found anything yet, but I will, once we have the prototypes, I want to test all of these issues with kind of protein binding and also heat resistance and the ability to kind of autoclave these products more than the literature has done so far.
Yeah, those are great ideas. Carla has a question. Feel free to ask your question.
Yeah, I actually have two questions. The first one is whether you've looked into issues during the breakdown of the products in terms of nanoplastic contamination in the environment.
So yes, I have looked into that a little bit, and there is a little bit of concern, especially with PLA surrounding this. So PLA is not able to break down in normal landfills because it has to be under certain temperatures and certain environments to actually break down and be compostable. But this is able to be done in composting facilities. However, the other two polymers that I mentioned, PHA and PF, are both plastics that are completely compostable and break down in landfills as well as composting facilities. PLA might have the potential to cause microplastic contamination. However, the other polymers would not.
Okay. And my second question was from a regulatory perspective. You say you've talked with potential consumers of the products. Have you also talked with the manufacturers around some of the regulatory requirements they might have around sterilization of the material or longevity testing and the reporting of that and how it influences, you know, the turnover of a product?
Absolutely. I have not talked to any of the producers of the current product yet. I've talked to companies that produce the polymers, so PLA and PHA. However, regarding the regulatory, that is a really good point that you're making. I do still have to approach companies such as Thermo Fisher or Sartorius or something to determine kind of regulatory standpoints on these products.
Is there anyone from government that you have considered talking to about regulation from the government as well?
I have also currently not done it yet. It is kind of on the list down the line, but that is something as well that I do want to do. I have talked to a practicing toxicologist for a company, and she has kind of given me a few inputs on where I would kind of have to like go myself to achieve certain regulatory certifications. Yes.
Yeah, it may also be that regulation drives change and requires a percentage of biodegradable products or safer products for the environment. So that could be a really important way to get your timing right, or potentially wrong, I guess.
Absolutely.
And in terms of industry, are there local companies in Alberta, for example, that you can talk to about their strategy or approach to moving towards more environmentally conscientious products?
I did talk to a company that is located in BC, who are currently producing products that are made for sort of vegetable packaging and stuff. And I'm currently in a conversation with them, talking about kind of what properties the plastic has to have, and how what kind of like path they went to kind of like get to the point where they are now.
Sure.
Unfortunately, no Alberta-based company.
Sure. Are there any other materials, like I know glass is also used outside of the plastics space, that might also be worth taking a look at?
Well, for sure, glass, which kind of also plays in like the industry that that Thermo Fisher and like Sartorius would be involved in. Other than that, I would say kind of metals and stuff, but with those we have other problems with like properties and stuff, especially in reaction to acids and bases. So there's kind of always a battle that you kind of have to choose, I think, in the beginning. So I will probably, for now, kind of concentrate on the plastics.
Sure. And just remind me why you chose the scientific market to start with. Do you think it's a bit easier to get into because of your experience, I guess, or are there other markets, consumer markets, for example, that might be more likely to be regulated in terms of the larger amount of plastic that they produce?
So the reason why I chose the scientific market, which you kind of like hit the nail on the head there, is that I do think that I kind of have more of an insight into what is used in labs and stuff, having worked in like a variety of labs throughout my degrees. I also wanted to move towards kind of the lab plastic environment, is because there are currently close to no products that are being produced from biodegradable plastics or biodegradable products at all. So what I found, the only stuff that is being produced from biodegradable plastics are kind of cases and stuff. So overall, I do want to kind of change that. I want to move into that market and give people the opportunity to choose whether they want to use biodegradable plastics or not. Other markets, such as kind of like, well, food wrappers or cutlery or plates and stuff like that, there's a lot of products out there already which are based around these polymers that I introduced, especially PLA. So I feel it would probably be a better battle to choose a less saturated market than there already is.
Sure. There's a great comment by Marnie about the plastics challenge. I guess you might already know about these, but feel free to take a look at the link in the chat box. And also I've posted the results from the feedback survey. So thanks again for presenting, Leon. Any last comments from yourself or questions from the people that are still around? Feel free to pitch in. Otherwise, I'm going to say thank you very much, Leon, and everybody else for joining in. Thank you for your time today. I know it's been a long meeting. We do have another meeting after this where we have, I think, about 6 speakers from the NHMI initiative. I'm just going to put that link up. You might already know what it is, but I'm just going to post it again one more time. And happy to take any questions, any feedback on what we could have done differently today to support the teams or the advisors who are here. You can also send me feedback by email as well. And sorry, I'm just looking for the link. So there's a separate Zoom meeting, which is occurring at 1 o'clock. So there's about 25 minutes before the next meeting. it's a long day. The next talks are going to be more academic, not pitches. So it'll be a slightly different theme. I mean, same theme, but not as commercial. And sorry, I'll just put that up in a second. Apologies. I don't have the link at the moment, but it was in the email that was sent around earlier from Cameron. And if you need that, feel free to just contact me. Again, I'm Overduin at ualberta.ca. So if you want the link to the Zoom meeting at 1 o'clock, just email me. And want to thank you all again. We're planning our autumn schedule, so hopefully I will post that soon. Typically, it's the second Wednesday of the month. So also just keep in mind that there is a Alberta Neuroscience competition coming up for $30,000 of seed funding. It's hugely helpful, especially to startups that are just developing their products and their commercialization strategy. And a lot of Albertan companies have already benefited. So Jennifer Dotson, thank you very much for that. The link is on the chat space. Feel free to share any other information. And I'll just put up the information about the meeting in a minute. One more second here.
Michael, I think I just posted the link to the Zoom.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's terrific. Perfect. Thank you so much, Jennifer. You're quicker than I am. We're ending a little bit early. I'm going to sign off now, unless there's any last comments. I'm going to share this video with the advisors. So I thank everybody who showed up today and also people who tune in after the fact to listen to the videos, and encourage people to contact the presenters. Your advice and support makes all the difference to these teams that are starting out. So thank you so much for helping our entrepreneur ecosystem here grow strong and healthy. So thanks again, and see you next time. Thanks again.